The vast golden dunes of the desert stretched endlessly beneath a moonlit sky, serene yet indifferent to the turmoil inside the opulent palace at its heart. Beneath the shimmering chandeliers and walls adorned with jewels, Ryan al-Fahim, the billionaire sheikh, perched on his throne of power, eyes cold and restless, rejected not once, not twice, but by 20 women who promised forever and delivered nothing but disdain. The palace was a fortress of extravagance, every corner dripping with wealth, silken cushions embroidered with gold thread, the scent of rare frankincense weaving through the air, and windows framing a desert so silent it seemed to swallow even whispers of hope. Yet within this paradise, the sheikh's world felt hollow, his golden cage suffocating him as much as it dazzled. Ryan's gaze flickered past the glittering halls to the gathering waiting for the next blind date, each setting a mask of politeness, each smile a hollow promise. His family's insistence on an arranged future gnawed at his pride. He was a man used to command, not rejection. Behind that iron facade, a storm raged, frustration clawing at his calm, a yearning for something real, something untouched by gold or pretense. Meanwhile, miles away, beneath the dust-heavy air of a miner's village, Layla wiped grime from her face, the scent of earth still clinging to her skin. Her life was simple, marked by honest toil and laughter shared under the open sky. When news reached her of the sheikh's desperate search for a bride, she only felt curiosity, not awe. To Layla, his title was but a word, his wealth a strange kind of magic she neither wanted nor feared. What stirred her was the courage to say yes, not to the man, but to the chance to glimpse a world beyond the cage of her daily struggles. Their worlds collided the moment Layla stepped into the palace's grand hall. The shimmering tapestries and golden accents reflecting back her modest dress and fierce, unyielding spirit. The elite whispered, eyes sharp with judgment and disbelief. How could the daughter of a poor miner accept the sheikh's invitation when princesses had turned him away? The first moments between Rayyan and Layla were electric yet fragile. His eyes narrowed, tasting disbelief as hers gleamed with unspoken defiance. "You agreed to this?" His voice, usually commanding, carried a rare mix of challenge and intrigue. "I did," she replied simply, the quiet strength in her words unsettling the polished veneer of his world. "Because I see a man beyond his riches. A man who might long for something true." The tension thickened, unspoken walls rising around them, an uncharted dance of power and vulnerability. Beneath the crystal chandeliers, their conversation unfolded in clipped phrases, each word heavy with meaning. His skepticism masked by curiosity, her resilience cloaked in honesty. The glittering court watched, hungry for scandal, yet unable to look away. As the evening wore on, a fleeting glance from Rayyan lingered too long. A crack in his armor where something unfamiliar stirred. His heart, buried beneath layers of pride, quickened with a feeling he could neither name nor deny. It was in that moment, while Layla's laughter, genuine and unrefined, echoed softly, that the impossible began to take root. Suddenly, the grand doors burst open. A servant hurried in, breathless, holding a folded letter, its seal unmistakable. Rayyan's hand trembled as he took it, unfolding the paper to reveal not a royal decree, but a revelation. A secret buried in Layla's past, one powerful enough to shake the foundations of his world and the fragile hope blooming between them. Before the palace could whisper its first scandal, before judgment could silence truth, Rayyan's gaze met Layla's, a silent pact forged in the shimmer of uncertainty, daring to challenge everything. And before the next secret of this vast emirate unfolds, make sure you're already part of our caravan of stories. Many destinies are still to be traced, and I don't want you to miss a single moment. Leave a like if your heart is already intrigued by this Billionaire Sheikh. Tell me in the comments, which city do you follow this saga from, and what twist do you think is coming next? Your passion for these dramas inspires us to keep going. Thank you for being with us. The folded letter trembled lightly in Ryan's hand, its elegant seal a cruel reminder of the world waiting to collide with the fragile possibility blooming between him and Layla. The grand hall, once humming with the subtle pulse of whispered gossip, now felt suffocatingly silent. Layla's eyes met his, unblinking and resolute, as if daring the secrets contained in that letter to break the fragile thread woven between them. "What is it?" Her voice was steady, but beneath it, a fierce tremor simmered, the instinct to brace for an ambush in this gilded cage. Rayyan hesitated, each breath heavy with the weight of 1,000 unspoken fears. Finally, he broke the seal and unfolded the parchment, his gaze scanning the words with a sharpness that betrayed the calm he tried to maintain. The letter spoke of bloodlines and debts, names whispered only in the shadows of the emirate, a lineage tied not to the common miner's daughter he believed she was, but to a legacy far darker and more perilous. "This," he faltered, voice low, "is someone's truth about you, Layla. Not what you told me." The words tasted bitter, like the dust settling outside the palace walls. The veneer of certainty he had offered her cracked, spilling doubt and suspicion into the room like an unforgiving storm. Layla's jaw clenched as memories she had fought hard to bury clawed their way back to the surface. The quiet miner's life she once knew felt like a distant mirage. Behind her calm exterior, her heart pounded with the terror of being exposed, judged, discarded. "I promised to face this, not just for me, but for what we might become," she said, voice threaded with defiance. "Whatever that letter says, it does not define me." A flicker of something, surprise, pain, crossed Rayyan's eyes. The Billionaire Sheikh, so accustomed to command and control, now found himself uncertain. His throne, so often a sanctuary, suddenly felt like a cage, trapping him between loyalty to tradition and an inexplicable pull toward this woman who dared to defy expectations. The murmurs in the hall swelled, unseen eyes eager to dissect every reaction, every falter. The courtiers whispered conspiracies, eager to turn this revelation into scandal. Yet amidst the swirling tides of judgment, Rayyan remained rooted. "Tell me everything," he demanded, voice rough yet earnest. "Not the shadows cast by fear, but the truth as you live it." Layla took a shaky breath, stepping forward into the vast open space. Beneath the towering crystal chandeliers, the soft glow painted her face in shades of amber and resolve. "I was taken from my home as a child," she began, each word deliberate. "Not by choice, but by someone with power. Power that sought to use my family's name for their gain. I escaped, yes, but the past has claws." Rayan listened, the walls he had built around his heart trembling with each confession. His fingers closed into a fist, memories unbidden stirring within. Betrayals that had hardened him, love that had been a weapon and a wound. A silence fell between them, dense and fragile. The palace air, heavy with incense and opulence, seemed suddenly intimate, charged with a potent mix of fear and hope. "Sheikh," Layla whispered, her gaze drifting to his, "I came here not because I seek your fortune, but because I saw in you a man trapped much like myself. Both prisoners of our pasts, perhaps, but maybe also capable of freedom." For a heartbeat, Rayan froze, the vast gulf between them closing with the sheer force of shared vulnerability. No longer the imperious ruler commanding from his throne, he was a man caught between the chains of legacy and the daring promise of change. Before he could respond, a sharp rap echoed through the hall. The grand entrance burst open once again, this time revealing a figure swathed in midnight silk, their presence commanding immediate attention. Whispered gasps filled the room as the newcomer's eyes locked on Layla. Eyes that carried the weight of judgment and a cold, undeniable authority. Rayan stepped protectively closer to Layla, his voice a low warning. "What?" The figure's voice sliced through the charged air, unwavering and sharp. "You do not belong here, Layla. Your past is not hidden, and it will consume everything you try to build within these walls." Tying the words with disdain, the stranger unveiled a document of their own, another fragment of Layla's history, a claim that not only threatened her popularity with the Sheikh's court, but challenged the very legitimacy of her presence in this palace. Layla's breath caught as her gaze met Rayan's in desperate urgency. He could see the storm raging behind her calm facade, defiance battling despair, hope sparked by his unwavering gaze. "Who is this?" Rayan demanded, tone icy but protective, the fire of his authority ignited anew. "A guardian of the Emirate's legacy," the figure replied, "and the keeper of truths best left buried." The tension rippled through the hall like desert heat. The walls seemed to close in, the chandeliers flickered, and every eye was locked on the unfolding drama. Rayan's mind raced, torn between the weight of ancestral duty and the fragile connection tethering him to Layla. Every instinct screamed retreat, but another whispered rebellion. Could he reject the past and embrace this woman who challenged everything he thought he knew about power and love? The stranger's gaze hardened as they stepped forward, deliberately close to Layla. A silent provocation. "This is your cross to bear. Will you let it destroy you, or will you fight for your place at this side of the Sheikh?" Layla squared her shoulders, voice steady but fierce. "I fight." Rayan's eyes narrowed, his chest swelling with a fierce protectiveness that shattered his usual cold reserve. Here, beneath the glittering chandeliers and the curious stares of the court, the billionaire Sheikh saw not just a rebellious miner's daughter, but a woman whose fire could burn away the layers of deception that bound them both. As the air thickened with impending confrontation, a whisper of movement drew their attention. A folded envelope slipped silently into Layla's hand, unnoticed by most. The seal broke with a silent snap, revealing a single sentence scrawled in elegant, ominous handwriting. "Truth is a luxury you cannot afford." Rayyan's pulse thundered in the sudden stillness. His eyes darkened, fixed on the message, as if it carried the weight of the entire desert. The grand hall faded into shadows, and in that moment, alliances, betrayals, and secrets waited in the wings, ready to unravel the fragile hope rising between the billionaire sheikh and the woman who dared to defy fate at his side. The candlelight flickered along the intricate carvings on the palace walls, casting dancing shadows that seemed to echo the turmoil within. Rayyan's eyes remained fixed on the fragile piece of parchment clutched in his hand, the chilling message burning into his mind. Truth is a luxury you cannot afford. The weight of that sentence pressed down on him, heavier than the countless jewels that adorned his throne. Layla's fingers tightened around the folded note she had slipped her hand into without anyone noticing. She exhaled slowly, steadying her racing heart. The hall was suffocating, every whisper and gaze sharpening the knife of vulnerability wound deep inside her. Yet she held her ground, refusing to crumble beneath the relentless storm. Rayyan stepped closer, the subtle heat from his presence wrapping around her like a shield. His voice, low but resolute, broke the silence. "Who delivered this?" His jaw clenched, eyes scanning the crowd for an answer. But no one dared meet his gaze. That made his anger rise, white-hot and unpredictable beneath the polished surface. The stranger in midnight silk, the guardian of the Emirate's secrets, stood smugly near the grand entrance, arms crossed in quiet defiance. Their presence was a challenge thrown into the heart of the palace, a direct threat to the fragile hope kindling between the sheikh and the miner's daughter who dared defy expectations. Layla's voice cut through the tension, firm and clear. "Whoever wants to bury the truth fears what lies beneath it. But I'm not running away." Her eyes locked onto Rayyan's, silent promises blazing in her depths. "Not from my past, not from this place, and not from you." For a moment, the gilded chamber seemed to hold its breath, the murmurs ebbing into an uneasy quiet. Rayyan's gaze softened, a flicker of the man beneath the Billionaire Sheikh's armor exposed. A surge of protectiveness coursed through his veins, fierce and unyielding. Here was a woman who refused to be crushed by the weight of secrets and ancestral chains. A woman who dared to fight alongside him. "Then we face it together," he murmured, voice roughened by emotion, stepping boldly in front of her. The courtiers recoiled like shadows shrinking from the midday sun, their whispers curdling into speculation and conspiracy. But Rayyan was no longer their distant ruler. He was a man claiming what was rightfully his, the choice to stand by the woman who challenged fate. The guardian's lips curled into a cold smile. "This is no longer your battle alone, Sheikh Al-Fahim. The past you fought buried is clawing its way back, and it won't be silenced by promises or defiance." Suddenly, a murmur rose near the marble pillars. A young servant appeared, breathless, holding another sealed envelope addressed to Rayyan. The sheikh's hands trembled as he took it. The weight of countless generations pressing heavy on his shoulders. Unfolding the letter, his eyes raced over a list of names, alliances, betrayals, and debts long hidden in the shadows of their family's empire. "Layla," he said, voice low but burning with urgency. "This is more than your past. It's a warning. A game played with lives and power that stretch beyond these walls." His fingers brushed a stray lock of her hair back, a trembling gesture stripped of his usual command. "You must understand what you have stepped into." Layla swallowed hard, the raw truth of the palace's unforgiving world crashing against the fragile hope she had dared to nurture. "I'm not afraid of what others decide. I only fear losing what we've just begun." A surge of anger flashed in Rayan's eyes. "They will come for you, for us. If the court believes you bear a shadow greater than mine, they will try to break you." Her gaze never wavered. "Then they will find the girl from the desert's edge stronger than their whispers." The moments stretched taut, a single breath suspended between defiance and the looming threat. A soft rustle came from the far corner of the hall. The grand doors swung open slowly, and an elder figure glided in, bearing the unmistakable mark of the royal council. His eyes, sharp and unforgiving, locked onto Layla with an intensity that made her skin prickle. "Enough of this charade," he declared, voice resonant and cold. "This palace doesn't belong to dreams or deception. If you carry the stain of forbidden blood, you must remove yourself from these halls." Before ruin follows, Ryan's stance hardened, a shield raised in silent fury. "You speak as if you know her history better than she does herself." The councilman's lips thinned. "History is written by the truth, Sheikh, and truths do not bend to love or loyalty." Layla's breath faltered, but then steadied. "Truth is more than accusations written in fear. It is what we live with courage." The air inside the grand hall thickened, every eye fixated on this clash of wills. Ryan's hand found hers, a quiet promise in the midst of the storm. "We will not be broken," he said. The councilman's gaze didn't waver as he stepped back, but a shadow passed through his eyes, a hint of a deeper game at play, secrets buried beneath the surface of the emirate's shining facade. Suddenly, a soft gasp escaped from the crowd. A servant, trembling, approached Rayan and whispered a warning. "Your Highness, there has been an incident near the western gates. A message from an unknown source. It bears the emblem of House Al-Fahim, but the seal is broken." Rayan's eyes darkened, every muscle coiling with tension. The hall seemed to grow colder, the luxury fading into a battlefield of hidden enemies. He cast one last glance at Layla, her fierce determination igniting a flame within his heart. "We are no longer safe here, not when shadows from all sides converge," he said, voice edged with steel. "Prepare the guards. Tonight, the palace becomes a war zone." Layla's hand tightened in his. "Then we fight. Together." Outside, beyond the palace walls, the desert whispered secrets of a storm gathering. One that would test love, loyalty, and the very survival of the Billionaire Sheikh's empire. But in the dim light of the grand hall, amid whispered threats and shattered illusions, a single truth remained unshaken. The real battle was only just beginning. The evening air in the grand hall hung heavy, thick with the echoes of whispered accusations and unspoken fears. Rayan's fingers still trembled as they tightened around the ominous note. Truth is a luxury you cannot afford. His usually steady breath caught, the weight of those words sinking deep into the core of his being. The vast room, dripping with gold and glittering crystals, felt suddenly claustrophobic, as if the walls themselves bore witness to the gathering storm. Layla's eyes remained firmly locked with his, unwavering despite the invisible daggers cast by the courtier's cold stares. Her chest rose and fell with steady determination, the fire behind her calm surface undimmed. She was no longer just a miner's daughter. She was a woman standing tall. Against the hurricane that threatened to tear everything apart, a hiss rippled through the gathering, but Rayan's gaze cut sharply through the air. Who sent this? His voice was barely above a growl, thick with both fury and unease. His eyes swept the crowd, but no soul dared meet his challenge. That silence ignited a fierce storm inside him, a mix of rage at their cowardice and a protective heat reserved only for Layla. The figure garbed in midnight silk, standing near the grand doorway, their presence cold as the desert night, gave a subtle, knowing smile. Secrets have a way of surfacing, Sheikh Al-Fahim. Their voice was smooth, but carried the sharp edge of warning. Layla's lips pressed into a thin line. My past may be written in shadows, but I am here, in the light. I won't hide. Her gaze drifted to Rayan, silent promises, lingering in the depths of her eyes. Not from them, not from you, and not from what I am becoming. The court leaned in, breath held captive by the tension weaving tighter around them, like threads of steel. The scent of rare jasmine wafted through the hall, mingling with the faint musk of sandalwood, creating an intoxicating yet oppressive atmosphere. The flame of a single candle flickered, its wavering light casting restless shadows that danced across the faces of the assembled nobles, faces etched with judgment, suspicion, and something worse, fear. Rayan stepped forward without hesitation, his presence a shield woven from iron and fire. Then we face this storm together. His voice, raw and resolute, left no room for retreat. The courtiers recoiled, whispers cascading like a tidal wave through the gilded chamber. But his eyes never wavered from Layla's. The figure in midnight, silk crossed their arms, an unyielding sentinel of the Emirate's fragile secrets. This is no longer just her fight, Sheikh. The roots of this past lie deep, entwined with power struggles that stretch beyond these walls. Before anyone could respond, a young servant's hurried footsteps echoed off the marble floors. Breathless, the boy approached Rayan, handing over another letter, its seal marred and broken. The Sheikh's jaw clenched as he broke the seal, fingertips trembling slightly despite his command. Rayan's eyes scoured the newly unfolded document, a web of names, betrayals, old debts scribbled in precise calligraphy. He swallowed the rising knot in his throat before speaking. Layla, this is a warning. You stepped into a world where shadows play with power. They threaten not just you, but everything I stand for. Her hand found his, fingers clenched tight with defiant strength. I fear no judgment from those who wield secrets as weapons. What I fear is losing what we have dared to begin. Rayan's gaze shone with fierce protectiveness, a fire burning behind his cold exterior. They will come for you. For us, if they believe your truth is darker than mine. Layla's defiance blazed like a desert star. Then let them find a woman who stands unbroken, forged in the grit of the sands they so easily underestimate. Silence fell heavy before the grand doors parted once again. A man cloaked in the emblem of the Royal Council entered with deliberate steps. His eyes were sharp, unforgiving, a living embodiment of the law and the weight of tradition. This palace is no place for illusions, he declared, voice echoing through the hall. If your blood carries the stain of forbidden lineage, you threaten not only yourself, but the legacy we uphold. Rayan's stance solidified, a living rampart against the councilman's icy words. And you presume to know her history better than she does, councilman. The man's expression tightened, lips thin as he spat. History is more than stories told with rose-tinted lenses, Sheikh Al-Fahim. It is shaped by truth, and truth bends to neither love nor loyalty. A flicker of pain crossed Layla's face, but it was quickly replaced by steely resolve. Truth doesn't petrify in accusations. It lives in the courage to face it. The murmurs began anew, rippling like a storm about to break. Rayan's hand twice sought hers, an anchor in the churning sea of nobles' whispers. We will endure. We will rise. Yet the councilman's cold eyes betrayed a secret far darker, a game far older and more vicious than either the sheikh or Layla had yet understood. Suddenly, a quiet gasp rose near the marble pillars. A trembling servant approached once more, words whispered harshly into Rayan's ear. Your Highness, there is trouble at the western gates. An intercepted message, bearing your family's emblem, but the seal is broken. The air grew colder still. The glittering palace walls seemed to fade, replaced by shadows creeping menacingly into the heart of their world. Every muscle in Rayan's body tensed, his gaze flickering to Layla, the fierce light in her eyes a balm amidst the encroaching darkness. We have no sanctuary any longer, he said quietly, voice edged steel. Tonight, the palace breathes the fire of war. Her grip tightened around his hand, a vow forged in shared defiance. Then let them come. We fight, not as prisoner and subject, but as equals, as partners. But distant howl of desert wind snaked through the open. Windows, carrying with it the scent of impending turmoil. Beneath the shimmering chandeliers, in the heart of an empire built on secrets and gold, the battle was no longer just for power or legacy. It was for love, trust, and survival. And as the shadows lengthened, one cold truth emerged with unforgiving clarity. The next move would change everything. The grand hall, once a sanctuary of dazzling light and delicate perfumes, now felt suffocating, its gilded walls pressing in like the weight of unseen chains. The flickering candlelight cast restless shadows that danced across the faces of the courtiers, their eyes sharp, tongues sharp as daggers, eager to unravel the fragile bond between Rayan al-Fahim, the billionaire sheikh, and Layla, the woman who dared to claim a place beside him. Rayan's fingers still curled fiercely around the ominous note, the words, "Truth is a luxury you cannot afford," echoing like a threat whispered by the desert winds outside. His breath, usually steady and sure, caught in his throat as he exchanged a long, searching glance with Layla. What had once been a fortress of wealth and unyielding command had been pierced by uncertainty, and for the first time in years, the Sheikh felt exposed, vulnerable in a way no luxury could conceal. Layla's eyes shimmered with defiant light, unwavering even as the murmurs rippled through the assembly. She was no longer the simple miner's daughter they thought her to be. She was a force, tempered in fire, sculpted by survival, a woman ready to face the ghosts resurrected by that cruel letter. Without warning, the murmurs morphed into whispers of accusation. A noblewoman near the back, adorned in shimmering silks, glanced at Layla with thinly veiled contempt. Does a woman of such shadowed heritage truly deserve to stand within the halls of Al-Fahim? Or is this just another game of desperation from a lonely sheik? The words dripped with venom, igniting a flicker of rage in Rayan's chest. He rose, the broad sweep of his robe catching the candlelight, transforming him into a living avatar of power and wrath. "She stands here because I command it," he declared, voice low but thunderous. "No whisper, no scorn will unseat her without my word." A silence fell, thick and suffocating. The figure in midnight silk, the guardian of the Emirate's secrets, stepped forward, their eyes glinting with an icy resolve. "And what of the truth she hides, Sheikh? Will your loyalty bend when the shadows consume all you hold dear? The blood that stains her past reaches deeper than you know." Layla's jaw tightened, but her voice was steady, unwavering. "My past is mine. It does not own me. I am more than what someone else's words claim." Rayan's gaze softened, a crack in the armor he wore like a second skin. "You are not defined by whispered lies, nor by chains forged before you were born. If they would burn you, I will be the shield." Their hands found one another's, fingers intertwining with a desperate strength born in the crucible of trust and trepidation. The delicate thread of connection formed between them was fragile, yet, in that moment, unbreakable. Suddenly, the grand doors thundered open again, and a thunderous voice cut through the tense air, freezing the assembly mid-breath. "Enough!" Every eye snapped to the doorway, where an imposing figure, cloaked in the insignia of the Royal Council, stepped forward. His face was carved with the ruthless grace of authority, lips thin and unyielding. His gaze sliced through the room as he addressed both sheikh and commoner alike. "This palace is not a stage for delusions of grandeur," he spoke, each word a hammer falling on fragile hope. "Layla of unknown birth bears the mark of forbidden blood. For her to remain here is to invite ruin upon House Al-Fahim and all it protects." Rayan's jaw clenched violently, the noise like grinding stone in the near silence. "I am the Sheikh. I command this house, and I will not watch you cast aside honor for outdated fears." The councilman's disdain twisted into a cruel smile. "Honor? Love is a luxury for those who can afford to bury the past. Your name demands more. loyalty to bloodlines sealed by fire and tradition, not tales of defiance. Layla stepped closer, the chandelier's light tracing the steel beneath her delicate exterior. Then let me be the living proof that blood does not chain us, that courage, not lineage, writes our destiny. The councilman's eyes flickered, as if recognizing a battle lost before it began. Yet in that flicker lurked darker games, deeper machinations still unseen. Before the moment could stretch further, a sudden clamor erupted near the pillars. Another servant rushed in, breathless beyond words, bearing a sealed scroll. The seal was the crest of Al-Fahim, but it was broken, the edges smeared as if dragged through dirt and time. Rayyan extended a shaking hand to receive it, his heart hammering fiercely as he broke the seal and scanned the contents. Alliances shattered, betrayals encoded carefully in ink, threats veiled in diplomatic language, but unmistakably a message meant to fracture the foundation he sought to protect. Enemies lurk closer than we imagined, he muttered, voice tight with fury and fear. This is not just a challenge for Layla. This is a war for everything we have built. Layla's grip tightened on his sleeve, eyes blazing. We will not falter. They have underestimated us both. A profound silence fell. The weight of tradition, secrets, and power suffocated the room, the opulence now feeling like a gilded cage poised to close. Then, from the shadowed alcove behind the council, a low, chilling voice whispered, not heard by all, but by Rayyan alone. You think yourself the master of this game, Sheikh, but the desert holds deeper secrets. Some truths demand a price too steep to pay. The silence shattered as the prince's eyes narrowed, every instinct alert. Outside the palace, the desert winds picked up, swirling dunes into furious storms. Inside, under the vast chandeliers, a brutal truth settled. The fragile hope between Rayyan and Layla was about to face its fiercest test yet, one that would not only threaten their hearts, but the very soul of the emirate itself. As the first flicker of dawn crept through stained glass windows, a long-forgotten emblem was secretly slid beneath Rayyan's chamber door. A serpent coiled around a rose, a symbol whispered only in the darkest tales of the Emirate's hidden wars. And in that silent offering lay a promise, a dark beginning to the war that would define their fates forever. The grand hall, heavy with the scent of incense and whispered tensions, held its breath as Rayyan's sharp gaze lingered on the broken seal of the latest letter. The parchment trembled slightly in his hands, a fragile vessel carrying the weight of shadows stretching across generations. Every word seemed to echo louder in the cavernous space, filling the air with a chill no crown of gold could ward off. Layla stood beside him, unflinching despite the wave of cold stares and the prickling awareness of every whispered accusation. Her eyes, dark and unwavering, met Rayyan's, a silent pact passing between them, forged not from ease, but from the fierce necessity of facing the storm ahead together. The courtiers hesitated, their murmurs stifled momentarily by the Sheikh's sudden motion. Rayyan let the letter fall to the marble floor, his voice stitching strength where doubt threatened to unravel. We will not be cowed by threats inked on parchment. If the past claws at our door, then let it come. We face it as one. The figure cloaked in midnight silk, silent and calculating, stepped forward, their presence a blade gleaming cold beneath the crystal chandeliers. "Your defiance will cost you dearly, Sheikh Al-Fahim. There are forces in this emirate older and darker than any you have known. This woman's history is a door to wars long thought buried." A ripple of unease surged through the crowd. Layla's fingers curled tighter around Rayan's, their clasp a tether anchoring them to a fragile hope. Her voice broke the thick silence, firm and resolute. "I am not the shadow they paint me to be. My past is mine to bear, but it will not dictate our future." Rayan's jaw clenched, the fire behind his otherwise calm exterior stirring to life. "No court of whispers will decide her fate, not when I stand for her." His glare cut through the sea of faces, daring any to defy his will. The gold and jewels surrounding them seemed suddenly irrelevant beneath the raw power of his declaration. A sudden stir near the far pillars drew every eye. Heavy footsteps echoed sharply as an elder with the emblem of the royal council strode into the hall. His face was carved with icy authority, eyes sharp and unforgiving. "This gathering teeters on the brink of ruin," he said, voice steely and cold. "Layla's bloodline is a poison to House Al-Fahim, a threat to the legacy we protect. Her presence here cannot be tolerated." Rayan moved instinctively, stepping between the councilman and Layla. His protective stance spoke louder than words. "You speak of legacy as if it's a chain forged from honor. I say it is a cage, and I will break it for the woman who stands by my side." The councilman's eyes narrowed, lips curling in disdain. "Love is a foolish business for rulers who forget the price of power. This is not defiance. It is a surrender to chaos." Layla's voice rang clear, cutting through the tension like a blade. "It is courage to stand when all expect you to fall. A legacy built on fear is no legacy at all." A sudden hush swallowed the room. Even the flickering candlelight seemed to hold its breath as the hall awaited Rayan's response. His hand found hers again, squeezing with fierce resolve. "We will stand in the face of fear," he vowed quietly, "and forge a future untouched by the ghosts of the past." From the shadows, the figure in midnight silk regarded them with a cruel smile. "Such conviction is beautiful and dangerous." Their eyes glittered dangerously, because the storm is coming, and it will not spare anyone. Before the weight of that threat could settle, a breathless young servant burst into the hall, clutching another letter sealed with the broken crest of Al-Fahim. His legs trembled, and sweat beaded his brow as he handed the scroll to the sheikh. Rayan's fingers shook as he broke the seal, unfolding the parchment beneath the glare of crystal lights. The ink traced names, alliances shattered like glass, accusations penned with cruel precision, each line a thread unraveling the fabric of power they had fought to maintain. His eyes flickered to Layla, burning with fierce warning. "This betrayal runs deeper than either of us imagined. Our enemies wear the faces of friends." Layla's breath hitched, but in her gaze blazed unyielding fire. "Let them come. I am no stranger to battle." Suddenly, the hall was pierced by the arrival of a messenger, breathless and urgent. "Your Highness, the western gates are under siege. Masked riders bearing the sigil of a forgotten house aim to breach the palace boundary." The crystal chandeliers swayed gently, casting kaleidoscopic shadows across gilded walls that suddenly felt like the tight embrace of a tomb. Rayon's face hardened, the weight of responsibility settling deep in his bones. "No peace awaits us," he murmured. "Tonight, we fight not just for power or pride, but for the future of all we hold dear." Layla tightened her grip, her gaze fierce and unwavering. "By your side, I face whatever darkness seeks to consume us." Rayon stepped forward toward the immense windows that framed the desert night, its vast silence now shattered by the distant thundering of horses. The stars above shimmered coldly, ancient witnesses to the human struggles unfolding below. He turned, eyes burning with a mixture of determination and something softer, hope that had survived the desert winds and the palace's poisonous whispers. "Prepare the guards. Summon the brothers in arms. Every shadow that dares cross our threshold will fall." As the tension in the hall rose like the desert storm, a faint sound reached Rayon's ears. Soft footsteps, retreating into the marble corridors. Glancing toward a shadow where no one should be, his gaze caught a flash of something left behind. A bloodied rose petal pinned beneath a silver dagger. A silent message from an enemy hiding in plain sight. The door to the hall whispered shut behind him, and in the shadows beyond, a voice murmured coldly, "Tonight, the game changes. The throne will know true fear." The silence in the opulent hall shattered like glass underfoot. Rayon's storm-dark eyes scanned the room, burning with a fury that wavered dangerously between ruler and wounded man. The broken seal slipped from his fingers and fluttered to the polished marble floor, its weight far heavier than the elegant paper it bore. Layla stood beside him, her chest rising steadily despite the suffocating scrutiny of the court. The golden chandeliers above cast a brilliant light that caught the shimmer of sweat on foreheads and the glint of suspicion in noble eyes. But in her gaze was a fire that refused to be extinguished, a blaze born of defiance and the hard-earned strength of survival. "You sent this to me?" Rayon's voice was a low growl, rich with anger and disbelief. "Who dares threaten what holds the throne?" His command rippled through the gathering, silencing the whispers like a sudden desert storm. No one answered. The room seemed frozen, the courtiers locked in their own webs of fear and conspiracy. From the shadowed archway, the figure wrapped in midnight silk stepped forward, their steps echoing with quiet authority. "The truth no longer sleeps in the shadows, Sheikh Al-Fahim. It claws its way to light, no matter how tightly you try to bind it." Rayon's hand instinctively covered Layla's, their fingers interlacing with a fierce urgency. The connection between them was electric, an unspoken promise carved from the brittle tension in the air. Layla met the stranger's gaze with unwavering resolve. "My past is my own. The sands that shaped me cannot be rewritten by whispers or threats." A cruel smile teased the guardian's lips. "Yet your history is more than a story, Layla. It is a storm that will shatter foundations if you let it." Rayon's jaw tightened. His throne, once a fortress of certainty, now hung precariously on the edges of unknown truths. All his life, power had been his sword and shield. But here, in the heart of his empire, he felt stripped, vulnerable in a way no wealth could protect. "Enough!" he declared, voice reverberating like thunder through the gilded hall. "I have chosen her. No letter, no shadow from the past will change that." The noblewoman, clad in silks, her eyes cold and sharp, scoffed. "And what of the blood she claims? What lies beneath that defiant mask when the whispers speak truth?" Before Rayan could respond, Layla took a breath that seemed to steady the very air around her. "Blood does not dictate worth. I am not the sum of fears painted by those who cannot see beyond their prejudices." For a fleeting moment, the great hall felt suspended in fragile calm. Then the grand doors swung open, revealing the unforgiving figure of the royal councilman, his cold gaze sweeping imperiously over all. "This house will not be undone." "By sentiment," he said, his voice sharp and final. "Layla's presence here is a threat to the legacy we uphold, a mark of forbidden lineage that cannot be tolerated." Rayan stepped defensively in front of her, his stature unwavering and commanding. "My loyalty is not to old fears, but to the woman who stands beside me." His eyes burned with the weight of his promise. The councilman's lips curled in disdain. "Love is a fleeting luxury. Tradition and bloodline bind the Emirate's fate." Layla's steady voice rose to meet his, unwavering and clear. "And courage binds me, not lineage, not fear." A ripple of murmurs coursed quietly through the hall, the courtiers torn between allegiance and trepidation. Suddenly, a breathless young servant hurried forward, trembling as he handed Rayan another sealed letter. The broken crest of Al-Fahim marred its once pristine seal. Rayan's hands shook as he broke it open, eyes scanning names, alliances fractured, old debts called in with merciless precision. The ink was a reckoning, a tapestry of betrayal woven with cold intent. "This war is no longer whispered in the shadows," Rayan muttered, voice etched with grim resolve. "They strike not just at her, but at everything this empire stands for." Layla pressed closer, her fingers digging into his sleeve, anchoring him against the storm. Her eyes burned fearless, unapologetic. "Let them come. We fight with every breath." The tension tightened, thick as desert heat. The councilman's eyes narrowed, lips a harsh line. "Your loyalty blinds you, Sheikh. The storm crests and will sweep all who stand in its path." At that moment, a murmur rose near the arched window frames. Shadows moved swiftly, too fast to be noble guests. Rayan's instincts flared. He strode toward the windows, the voice of the desert wind tangling with the distant thunder of hooves. Masked riders, carrying sigils long thought forgotten, charged the palace gates with merciless intent. Rayan's breath hitched, every muscle taut with tension. "Prepare the guards, every blade must be ready." His tone left no room for error. This was battle, not politics. Layla's gaze locked with his, unwavering amidst the approaching chaos. "Together then, no matter the cost." The golden light flickered as the chandeliers trembled under the swelling storm outside. Fragile hope and ancient fears collided beneath the palace's glittering vaults. A shadow slipped silently behind a velvet curtain, a hidden hand releasing a delicate black rose, a symbol whispered only in the deadliest corners of Al-Fahim's history. The hall held its breath again, but this time the silence spoke of war and of a secret that would unravel everything they had dared to build. As Rayan's eyes met Layla's, the final truth settled between them. The next move would decide not just their hearts, but the fate of the empire itself. The tension in the grand hall was suffocating, thick enough to choke the very light from the glittering chandeliers. Rayan al-Fahim's eyes burned with a fierce fire as he held the bloodied rose petal pinned beneath the silver dagger. It was a silent message, a whisper of war smoldering beneath the polished veneer of his empire. Around them, the court remained frozen, the murmurs stifled by the gravity of the moment. Layla's fingers tightened around his, her gaze unwavering, the steel in her eyes reflecting the battles yet to come. She was no longer the girl from the miners' village. She was a warrior, stepping boldly into the storm, unafraid to stand beside the billionaire sheikh, her heart bound to his with fierce loyalty. Outside the palace walls, the desert wind howled like a restless beast, stirring the golden dunes into furious waves that mirrored the turmoil within. Within the ornate, echoing corridors, the palace itself seemed to hold its breath, the scent of jasmine mingling with the faint, metallic tang of fear. Rayan's voice broke the silence, low and commanding. The dagger is no ordinary threat. It carries the mark of a hidden hand, one that knows our weaknesses, our secrets. His words hung heavy, settling over the crowd like a dark cloud. Eyes darted nervously, searching faces for betrayers, for friends turned foes. The luxury that once dazzled now felt like a gilded cage, trapping them in a web of suspicion. A servant approached hesitantly, a token folded carefully in his outstretched hands. Rayan accepted it, unfolding a parchment that bore an ominous seal, a serpent entwined around a rose, the emblem now seared into the palace's deepest fears. The script was elegant yet deadly, demanding allegiance or promising ruin. Layla's breath hitched as she read the message no one else could see. Choose your path wisely. The desert's shadow grows long, and no light is safe. She met Rayan's gaze, a silent promise settling between them, a vow forged in the crucible of uncertainty and unspoken truths. He drew her closer, the heat of his presence a shield against the encroaching darkness. Who sent this? Layla's voice was steady, but beneath it trembled the echo of 1,000 dangers hidden in the words. Rayan's jaw tightened. The same enemy who wants to crumble everything we hold sacred. His eyes flickered to the midnight silk figure lurking near the grand doorway, whose cold smile only deepened the mystery. The guardian of secrets strode forward, their voice a whisper sharpened by steel. You both walk on a knife's edge. Every step draws you into a labyrinth where trust is the deadliest gamble. Rayan's hand found Layla's again. Together, then, we tread this path as one. A sudden crash echoed from the palace's western gates. Servants and guards rushed toward the commotion, their hurried footsteps a cacophony against the marble floors. The distant thunder of hooves echoed faintly in the night air. Rayan's eyes darkened. They have begun. The siege is no longer a threat in shadow, but a storm upon our doorstep. Layla's lips curved in a fierce smile, the fearless spark rekindled in her gaze. Then the walls will not hold alone. Her voice was a vow. We fight, side by side. The crowd parted instinctively, revealing the unmistakable figures of masked riders draped in the colors of a forgotten house. Their banners, torn and battered, bore symbols long erased from the annals of the Emirates' history. A deliberate provocation. Rayyan's silhouette against the flickering torchlight was that of a ruler reborn into war. His voice carried the weight of command and the tenderness of a man guarding all he loved. To arms, every guard at their posts. The palace shall not fall. In the midst of the chaos, Layla felt his breath brush against her neck, a fragile anchor in the eye of the storm. Yet beneath their united front lurked a tension, a quiet fear that behind every shadow lay a deeper threat. Suddenly, a soft rustle caught their attention. From the folds of her gown, a small, ancient key slipped loose and clattered to the floor. Layla bent swiftly to retrieve it, her heart racing with a truth long buried beneath the sands. This key, old as whispered legends, unlocked a door within the palace no one dared speak of. Rayyan's eyes narrowed as he glimpsed it in her palm. "Where did you get that?" Her voice was barely a breath. "It was hidden in the locket my mother gave me. Before everything changed." A hush fell, the weight of unspoken history anchoring the moment. In that silence, a distant voice, hard, authoritative, cut through the chaos, resonating from the depths of the palace. "Beware, Sheikh al-Fahim. The greatest battles are not fought on walls, but within shadows you cannot see." The door to the grand hall stood ajar, the night's chill weaving through the space like a silent threat. The game had shifted. The stakes were no longer power or love alone, but survival against an unseen enemy weaving through their lives with deadly precision. Rayyan tightened his grip on Layla's hand, a silent promise that whatever the desert's darkness held, they would face it together. And as the first embers of dawn teased the horizon, a whisper traveled through the palace halls, a name spoken in fear, in hope, in the promise of reckoning: Zahra. The past was no longer a shadow behind them. It was the storm raging before. The air thickened, charged with the promise of secrets clawing their way into the light, and the next chapter of their battle was about to begin. The dawn painted the desert sky with gentle hues of pink and gold, a silent promise of renewal after the long, restless night. Inside the grand hall of the palace, where shadows had once threatened to choke, the fragile hope between Rayyan al-Fahim, the billionaire sheikh, and Layla, there was now a calm unlike anything either had known. The weight of secrets had been faced and found powerless against the strength they had forged together. Rayyan's eyes, once stormy with doubt and suspicion, softened as they rested on Layla. She stood with a quiet grace, the fire in her gaze tempered now by a serene certainty. In this moment, all the whispered lies, the veiled threats, and the shifting alliances felt distant, like a fading nightmare from which they had finally awakened. The councilman who had sought to unravel their union was gone, his words reduced to echoes lost beneath the steady pulse of truth. The nobility, so quick to judge, had been silenced not by force, but by the undeniable courage of two souls who refused to be broken. Layla stepped forward, her dress brushing the polished marble, and reached out to touch Rayyan's hand. Their fingers intertwined effortlessly. A simple gesture, charged with the weight of a journey only they fully understood. "I am no longer the girl they thought I was," she whispered, her voice steady and proud. "I am the woman who chooses her own path, beside the man who sees me for what I truly am." Rayyan's chest rose with a deep breath, the barriers that had surrounded his heart crumbling as he took her hands in both of his. "And I am the man who has found freedom, not in riches or power, but in the love you give me." Outside the palace, the rising sun cast long shadows across the golden dunes, revealing a land as ancient and enduring as the bond now forged within these walls. The desert breeze carried a new scent, one of blossoms from the royal gardens, where Layla had already begun planting flowers that symbolized hope and growth, a living testament to their shared future. In the weeks that followed, the palace transformed. Where suspicion had once ruled, kindness grew. The courtiers, seeing the genuine strength of the bond between their sheikh and his chosen, slowly shed their prejudices. A harmony settled over the emirate, tentative at first, like the fragile shoots of spring pushing through arid soil, then steady and sure. Rayyan met with his council, his voice calm yet authoritative, guiding the realm away from the shadows of past conspiracies and towards a new era, one marked by justice tempered with compassion. His love for Layla became a beacon, inspiring unity rather than division. Layla now embraced not just as the beloved of the sheikh, but as a respected woman of the court, found her own place of influence. She worked tirelessly to improve the lives of those from her village and beyond, bridging worlds once thought irreconcilable. Her past, no longer a chain but a foundation, gave her strength that only deepened their shared resolve. One evening, as the stars began their silent vigil above the palace, Rayyan and Layla stood on the balcony, overlooking the vibrant city lights, mingling with the endless desert. The air was warm, carrying the laughter of children playing in the gardens below, a sound that had once seemed impossible in these halls. He pulled her close, his voice low and filled with promise. This is our victory, Layla. Not just over the enemies who sought to divide us, but over the fear that once ruled our hearts. She smiled, resting her head against his shoulder as the cool night wind whispered through the palm fronds. Together, we are unstoppable. Our love breaks every chain. Years would pass, and their story would become legend. Not tale of power seized or battles won, but as a testament to love's ability to heal, to transform, and to endure. The palace gates opened wide to welcome all, no longer as barriers, but as symbols of an emirate reborn. Children of all backgrounds played beneath the same sun that had once scorched the unforgiving dunes. And in the heart of it all, Rayyan and Layla reigned, not just as sheikh and consort, but as partners bound by truth, sacrifice, and the promise of a tomorrow radiant with hope. The desert, endless and ancient, watched silently as a new chapter unfolded. A chapter where love, against all odds, had finally found its throne.